Welcome back to another essential movie. Today we'll be taking a look at a story called The Oxford Murders.
Outside this room, nothing exists.
Battlefield. Smoke, guns. Yelling soldiers are constantly engaged in combat. Among all of this, a young soldier sits on rocks, painstakingly writing something, maybe a book. But he seemed to want to get it over with as quickly as possible. At first glance, the film appears to be an action thriller. But it isn't, and we're going to go right into it. The setting changes to a lecture hall. Arthur Seldom, a professor, is giving his lecture. He presents the audience a book and tells them that it is the book that the soldier named Ludwig Wittgenstein was writing during the war. According to him, this book, Tractus Logico-Philosophicus, is the most renowned book of the 29th century. He questioned the audience why a soldier would risk his life to write a book, rather than engage in the war and preserve his life. Arthur then responds that the soldier was looking into the existence of pure truth. Can we know the truth? This was also the essence of his lecture. In the other scene, we see a little boy sitting in a bus, carrying a brochure on which Arthur's works with his photos can be seen. Martin is a graduate international student who idolizes Arthur and wishes to conduct his thesis research with Arthur as his supervisor at Oxford University. Martin stays at a lovely home owned by Lady E. Gelton, who subsequently turns out to be an old friend of Seldom. That might be why Martin applied for housing here, so he could be near to Professor Seldom. During their talk, E. Gelton remarks that Professor Seldom is meek. Beth enters. Her demeanor is nasty and abrasive, which I believe stems from the fact that she has been caring for E. Gelton for the past 5 years, putting her personal interests aside. Her look suggests me she has a lot of work to do and is uncomfortable here. She is a musician by passion and career. At the dinner, she begins blowing her own trumpet in front of Martin, which is another indication of her personality. According to their gossip, Lady E. Gelton used to reprimand Beth for a variety of reasons. Martin goes to the library the next day and meets with his thesis in charge, who guides him to his library and asks him how he chose his thesis supervisor. Martin expressed his desire for Arthur to be his supervisor. However, the in-charge informed him that Arthur does not currently oversee students' theses since he is preoccupied with his books. Martin feels disappointed by this news. He goes to tennis hall, exhausted. Martin meets Lorna, a nurse, while playing tennis. Martin piqued her interest at first sight, and they became instant friends. She drives Martin home. Beth was observing this from the balcony, and she mocks Martin for making new mates in only one day. Something is making Beth jealous, I can feel this, or rather regretful, because she hasn't made any friends in 5 years. Martin responds that she should attempt to get outdoors and make acquaintances as well. In the following scene, when Martin was bathing, Beth informs him that Seldom would be giving a talk at a college to promote his book. We're back in the lecture hall, where Arthur is talking about ultimate truth in order to establish his hypothesis that there is no such thing. Martin asks the question by raising his hand. Arthur allows him. Martin claimed that he believes in number pi. As a result, he also believes in ultimate truth. This comment contradicted Professor Arthur's notion. He humiliates him by proving him wrong in front of the audience. Martin feels stupid, so he decides to return. But his roommate Pedro stops him, saying that while it is evident that he would continue to fail, he should not make any waste in haste. Martin suspects Pedro was also unsuccessful in becoming a professor's student. But Martin has chosen to return, so he comes to Lady E. Gelton's house to pack his bags. As he is leaving, he meets Seldom, who has come to see his friend E. Gelton. Martin apologized and stated that he only wanted to get his attention so that he could ask a ridiculous question. They both enter the E. Gelton residence and Seldom forgive him. Great shock. She has died. No, she has been murdered. Her eyes are wide open, and she is laying on the chair. Martin contacts the police to report the death. The police officer interrogated them both. Martin introduces himself simply as an overseas student. The professor informed the officer that after completing his college lecture, he got a note on which E. Gelton's home address was written with a symbol. Officer asked him to present the memo, but the professor stated he tossed it away because he received a lot of letters like this after writing his book, Logical Succession of Killings. Officer directs Scott, a police officer, to locate this memo. During the inquiry, I developed a strong antipathy for Professor Seldom. It appears to me that he is simply creating stories out of notes and everything. Furthermore, the professor tells the police officer that although it is said in the note that this is the first, there may be more murders in the manner of a series like 1, 2, 3 or 2, 4, 6 or 1, 1, 2, 2, and so on. Officer becomes perplexed and wonders what the relationship between numbers and fatalities may be. Professor explains that the killer wants to prove me wrong and illustrate that there is no logical sequence in murders. Martin and Professor are strolling down the road after the questioning scene, pondering the murder. Martin believes that the murderer will target individuals who are about to die. Perhaps the killer is playing a mental game with the professor, because the cops will pay little attention in such circumstances. Arthur walks to the orchestra, where Beth is rehearsing her music, to tell her about her mother's death. She looks happy. At night, Martin is looking through Eagleton's images, attempting to figure out what caused her death. Here comes Beth. Perhaps she wants to share her anguish with Martin. Police have been questioning her for 2 hours and assume she is the main suspect. She claims that they are correct in their assessment, since she has been thinking for 5 years that when the elderly lady dies, she would be free. Martin comforts her by saying that the killer intends to murder more people, and your mother was the first victim. In the next scene, Pedro sarcastically congratulates Martin on his photo being featured in the press with Arthur. Martin and Professor then discuss the murder in a cafe. Both have opposing theories. Martin wants to discover the murderer so that he may be punished for his crime, while Arthur wants to discover the perpetrator because if they don't, Beth will face punishment. The pillow used in the murder had Beth's fingerprints on it, and investigators don't care considering she was the caregiver. Instead, they look for proof. Martin meets Lorna at Tennis Hall in the following scenario. It discloses that she also knows Arthur, but not in a good way. We've got a hanky-panky situation going on here. Martin goes to the hospital where Lorna works to meet her the other day. Martin becomes annoyed when he encounters a man who appears to be a lunatic while waiting. Actually, the man's daughter is in the hospital, and if liver transplant is not performed soon, she will die. Professor is also in the hospital to see his former pupil Kelvin, who has cancer. The professor stated that Kelvin was his greatest student, but he was very focused on his studies, which drove him insane. Beth is in love with Martin, but when she learns that he has a girlfriend named Lorna, she becomes furious. Following this, Martin discovers a note with the address of the hospital where Lorna works on the door of the library. It also has a number and a symbol written on it. Martin contacts Lorna in a hurry, thinking it's a death message, and asks her about Kelvin, who may be the one who dies shortly. Lorna informs him that Kelvin is well, but that Kelvin's roommate, an elderly man, has died. Martin and Professor, accompanied by a police officer, proceed to the hospital to examine the body. They discover an injection mark on the deceased body's arm. It was the second murder of the series. They discover 2 interlocking circles in this murder note. Arthur brings them to the class and explains that they are part of a mathematical series. It suggests that the killer is a mathematician who wishes to rule Arthur. My mind immediately casts doubt on Pedro, because he is the one who can inflict vengeance and wishes to subjugate Arthur. Let's see what comes in. Martin goes to dinner with Lorna that night, but Arthur interrupts, and his contact with Lorna indicates that they are not on good terms, and Lorna dislikes him. Lorna announces that the postmortem has been completed, proving that the dead body contained nothing toxic. Arthur is unconcerned about this. Rather, his interaction demonstrates that he just intended to upset Martin's, so that he broke off with Lorna. He even mentions Lorna as a possible suspect. She left enraged. Martin and Arthur's investigation continues. Arthur stated that one sign is missing, and Martin must locate it in order to prove himself a good student. Martin concurs. The following scene. When Beth met Martin, she informed him that the police had interrogated her again, and that Martin was living with them when Eagleton was murdered. She also told the police that the professor previously insulted Martin during a class. Martin is concerned that, as a result of Beth's disclosure to authorities, he may be suspected of murder, and he was correct. A police officer calls him and Professor to inform them of the new clue. Martin is suspected of murder. Martin then encounters Lorna, who advises him to stay away from Arthur since he may be exploiting him and will subsequently accuse Martin of murders. Martin became enraged at Lorna and blamed her of loving Arthur. Lorna stumped him. Martin then meets Pedro at university and discovers that he despises Arthur because he believes the professor stole his research material. Martin attends a Guy Fawkes Day ceremony. When he notices Pedro acting strangely, he signals the cops to arrest him. When the cops apprehended him, they discovered that he was only planning to put an offensive ad on the roof. A member of the orchestra collapses and dies from respiratory failure while they are preoccupied. On his piano stand, there is a triangular image. Seldom then tells Martin a tale of a 19th century man who kept a diary in which he listed methods to murder his wife. When the wife found the diary, she murdered her husband but was convicted by a jury on the grounds of self-defense. It was discovered decades later that the woman's lover had faked the journal. A news bulletin announces that the Fermat's last theorem has apparently been solved, much to the delight of Oxford's mathematicians. Seldom, Martin, and the other mathematicians take a bus to travel to the conference, but Martin exits the vehicle when he spots Lorna crossing the street. They meet up again and decide to take a lengthy break from Seldom, Maths, and Oxford. Hanging out with Lorna, Martin discovers that the killer's sequence is made up completely of Pythagorean symbols, with the fourth being a tetractys, 10 points. Investigators believe the murderer aims to target the bus carrying Seldom and the other mathematicians because he is infatuated with Seldom. Martin understands that the man he met in the hospital is the killer, nevertheless. The man was driving a school bus for students with developmental difficulties. Due to his belief that the students are unfit to live and his desire to provide organ donors in order to save the life of his own daughter, he explodes the bus, killing the children and himself. Martin and Lorna then get ready to depart Oxford. Martin, on the other hand, understands that Seldom has been deceiving him all along. As Lorna leaves the room in disgust, Martin runs to meet Seldom. He explains what he has learned. Here is the unfolded story, folks. The police were right in their prime suspect. Beth had killed Lady Egelton to relieve herself of the responsibility of taking care of her mother. She called Seldom in a fright, and he rushed over to help with the cover-up. Coincidentally, Martin arrived at the same time at the house, so Professor was unable to clean up the dead body evidence. In order to draw attention away from Beth, he made up the story that he had received a message from the murderer. The next murder, when the patient passed away in the hospital from natural causes, Seldom had simply produced a fake injection mark and left a sign behind. The third murder in the series was of a musician at the Guy Fawkes occasion, was a happy happenstance that Seldom exploited. Seldom asserts that his only crime was lying and exploitation of different scenarios. His acts did not cause any deaths. Martin, on the other hand, argues that Seldom's murdering spree served as inspiration for the bus bomber, and the innocent kids were murdered in the bus. Arthur responds to this accusation that all actions have unintended consequences. Furthermore, he is not solely the cause of every murder. The murder of Beth's mother was due to Martin's rude statement that she should also hang out outside and made friends like him. Beth took it seriously and murders her mother. Martin is shocked, and we got the end. Aside from the various philosophical concepts offered, this film shows us that perception is not reality. Rather, it is only our limited and erroneous perspective of reality. We will never see anything but illusions and lies unless we are prepared to challenge what we believe to be true. Thanks for watching another Essential Movie Recap. Please like and subscribe.